Welcome to another episode of the Miles Offside podcast, where we talk a little bit of football and a whole lot of nothing. My name is Oscar Puente, also known as Footy from Afar, and with me as always is my co-host Chuck Bailey.
This week I would like to veer onto the side of talking about nothing rather than talking about football.
So like me last week?
Yeah.
And we should relentlessly bombard you with comments and jokes and pokes and prods.
Yeah, you could do, mate, but the difference is that I've never had the privilege of supporting a good team, so it's not like I'm falling from a great height.
That's true. We'll take it easy on them. And by we, I mean myself and super producer Ian Stimson. Ian, how you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, Oscar. I'm a bit upset because I know we're not a fantasy football podcast, but my fantasy football performance this week has already been absolutely shocking. Captain Salah, he's benched. My vice captain Zanatovic went off with a hamstring. I'm having an absolute shocker. And we are recording on Wednesday evening. We're about to go into the second half of some of these matches, so we don't know how everything's ended, but it's not looking good so far for me.
Yeah, if I tune out for a while, it's just because I started watching the Chelsea match behind me. But just carry on. I'll come back in. I'll pick up where it was.
That's good. It's good to have this level of commitment to the listeners.
Yeah. Speaking of Chelsea, halftime. Ruben done a goal today. Ruben done a goal on the weekend. Pod favorite RubenLoftusCheek in red hot form for the Blues. How exciting is that for you? Chuck, that means less likely to have a move in January, but...
Yeah. He's played himself out of the move, guys. This is it. The dream move that he was meant to get, it's all over now.
Yeah.
Like I said, now we'll just have to spend an inordinately huge amount of money for an obscure player that will get injured 3 games in. Never play for us again.
I knew this was going to be the Chuck Hates Football episode.
Yeah. You mean every
I was going to say,
week?
pick it up where we left off, yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand how I'm getting this name for myself, that I'm a football fan that hates all football.
Oh, that would be the demeanour and the things you say. That would be...
Yeah. Usually it's the words coming out of your mouth that give it away, but...
I didn't think people were that observant. Damn it.
People are actually listening, Chuck.
Hey, at least you're not a sad stats robot.
Beep boop.
Exactly. Not to veer too much into actual football talk, but it is nice to see Ruben on the field. And there was a lot of rotation today, because it's midweek and we have City at the weekend, obviously. But I do wonder if he would have been getting a start anyway after the last few matches he's played. He's been much better than Barkley. I'm like getting closer and closer and closer to allowing myself to buy a RubenLoftusCheek jersey.
Nice.
I love him so much.
That should seal the January move.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be my January
Yes, do it.
shirt purchase.
Buy the shirt. What obscure competition is he being in? Quick.
Europa League.
A Chelsea shirt with a Zenith Data Systems Cup badge on it. That's one for Google for you guys.
You clicked
there.
the wrong place one time, like 10 years ago, and you never live it down. Well, if you are joining us for the first time, welcome aboard. We're happy to have you. If you are still back, 2 episodes after the Marvel special, waiting for us to keep talking about Marvel, just hang out. Maybe we'll get there. It's always good to have some new listeners. And if you are a returning listener, thank you. We love you. We appreciate you very much. Gentlemen, are we strapped in and ready to go?
Strapped in. No, I'm not going to say.
Strap on.
No.
Come on.
Yes! Got someone else to say it.
There it is.
Tick.
All right, well, we'll kick it off with some rapid fire news.
Oh, for those listening at home, because you can't see this unless you are a hacker, we do like to simulate the keyboard strokes for that. And me and Ian in perfect synchrony there.
Played air keyboard.
Our top story this evening. Welcome to the Europa League 2. UEFA has just announced the introduction of a third club European competition. Boys, are we excited for the Europa League 2?
Europa League 2 with a vengeance. Yeah, I guess it's something for Jose to aim for. Yeah, good.
Yeah, exactly. Palace might be able to play in Europe again after that.
Good one.
Maybe not this year.
Unless we did a league of relegations.
I mean, if they just keep making more and more divisions in the European competitions, eventually, like the 16th place English team will definitely be in there.
Process of elimination, yeah. But then that'll be the year that FIFA get involved, UEFA get involved in a Brexit as well, and then English teams just won't allow to be involved in that. And that would be the year that Palace did well and got in. Calling it.
I just started Googling Europa 3, and the first thing that came up was Europa 3-person hot tub. I don't know what that says about my Google habits. Or
It does give you preferential search results.
I know, bit worrying.
He's got the pampas grass out the front. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, that is a thing about it. Sorry, go on.
Next story. Dublin Soccer Club fake player's death to get match called off. Chuck, have you ever faked a death to get off work for a day?
I can't say I've ever faked a death. It seems in bad taste. I do know someone... I work for a company, and obviously when people leave, you have to process them on a system, and you select from a load of options, obviously whether they've resigned or been fired or failed a probationary period, etc. And there is, of course, an option for death. However, if you do click the death one, a letter gets sent to the emergency contacts of said person, wishing them their condolences for that person passing away.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it happened by accident a few years ago by a pub. And so these parents had just sat at home with a letter saying, "We're sorry to hear about the passing of your son." Needless to say, they weren't too happy.
No, that's amazing.
That's fantastic. What about you? Ian, any funny stories relating to fake deaths?
I mean, there was one. I work in sound, and I was working for a news outlet, and we were rehearsing one of the obituaries. So we have to regularly rehearse if a major royal dies, and we were rehearsing what would happen when Prince Philip goes, and I'm on my own in sound mixing this rehearsal, and the cleaner comes in, starts changing the bin, and then we're talking about Prince Philip's died, and she just drops the bin and goes, "Oh my God!" And I was like looking around going, "No, it's fine. He's still alive. Don't know why you're so bothered, but he's still alive. It's fine." It was like, but I had to talk her down. It was ridiculous.
Oh, you guys might have to talk me down through this episode. Fucking Alvaro Murata. RubenLoftusCheek lays off a perfect pass across the 6-yard box, and he falls over his own feet and doesn't even make contact on it from about 2 yards out.
Oh my God.
Should be 2-0 to Chelsea. God damn Alvaro Murata.
Look,
Anyway.
this can't be in a news section because it's not news. Alvaro Murata is not good. Why don't they? Maybe Palace will buy Alvaro Murata. That seems like a perfect fit.
That seems like the sort of thing you'd do.
Yeah, 50 mil probably. I think that's fair.
How much did we pay for Torres? If we can sell him for the same we paid for Torres, it all balances out.
50 mil, I think.
I think it was 50, yeah.
Job done.
All right, next story. Tottenham will hold a fan familiarization event for 6,000 supporters at their new stadium on December 16th. Gentlemen, are they jinxing themselves again, planning an event for a stadium that isn't open yet?
I reckon really it's just to test the structure to see if the stadium will sink or not. Because that seems like the kind of next calamity that will happen, is that they didn't account for the weight of the seats or the weight of the cheese, and it gradually sinks into the ground.
It's only 6,000 because that's how many hard hats and high vis they've got.
Yeah, they're all just coming in on work experience. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. They're all like apprentices.
Yeah,
just mucking in. Oscar, back in the
next
room, mate. Come
section.
on.
Yeah, sorry. Another miss from inside the 6-yard box. We can put these all in.
Yeah, it's fine.
This fucking
Someone
guy.
unplug his microphone so I can go, "Alexa, turn off the TV."
Sorry. Okay, next story. Jose Mourinho says Alexis Sanchez will be out for a, quote, long time with a hamstring injury suffered in training on Thursday. Do we think he's magically going to be cured on January 1st?
When the transfer window opens, that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Curious.
Intriguing, yes.
Has he also got a virus?
Well, maybe he got something from Paul Pogba, because our other news story about Mourinho is that he launched into a brutal verbal assault on Pogba in training.
That's
And he
really
said
not
that
on
he's
brand.
a virus, right? Isn't that the quote?
That is, yeah.
He's a virus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Called him a virus. So maybe that's what Sanchez has got, is a bit of the Pogba's.
Sanchez has got a real case of the Pogbas. What do you mean, talented player who's just been crushed by a diminutive Portuguese overlord? Is that the symptoms for the virus?
Yeah, no. It's douchey haircuts and taking penalties very, very slowly.
Yeah, and having way too many dogs. And pictures of dogs. The same picture.
Oh, that was brilliant. That was brilliant.
A friend of the show, Johnny Worthington, had noticed on a picture Alexis Sanchez had put out on his Instagram that he has pictures of himself with his two dogs next to his TV, was it?
Yeah, it was on some counter somewhere.
But not only does he have a picture with his two dogs, he has another picture with his two dogs, which is the same picture, just in a different frame.
That's amazing, though, as well. If you're going to do that, I mean, where do you... Probably put them next to each other.
Do you reckon he got one of them? Do you reckon he got one of them group deals? You know, when you get 4 pictures of different sizes, and he just messed up and went, "Oh, sod it, I'll just put them around the house."
But even so, he's got more than one room. You don't have to put them next to each other. It's absolutely ridiculous. The actions of a madman.
We don't know if he has 2 in every room either. We just know that those 2 are in that room right next to each other there. There could be a lot more of that picture all over the place.
I want to believe that. Yeah.
I want to see the Alexis Sanchez episode of Cribs. That's what I want to see. I don't know if that show still exists, but I want it back.
Bring it back just for that. Oh, I loved Cribs. Cribs was fantastic. This is where the magic happens. Everybody said that about their bedroom, and I was like, okay,
I don't understand this reference.
Yeah, you just sit there thinking, there's a lot of magicians in Hollywood.
I assume they meant the TVs that always popped up from the foot of the bed.
Oh, God, one day I'll have that. Although your feet would just get in the way, wouldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, let's face it, a lot of Cribs was ridiculously pointless shit.
Yeah. And Mariah Carey getting naked and jumping in a bath in the middle of a TV show.
That was the strangest episode I've ever seen. What was that all about? It was just her getting into different, dressing gowns and sort of, it was the strangest thing I've ever seen. It's just different ways to show off her boob job. I mean, I wasn't complaining, but it was a bizarre episode. It was really weird. I'm going to have a long, hard rewatch of that later.
Yeah.
Emphasis on hard.
yeah, less so on long.
We'll see.
Oh!
Got him! It's just, if you can even get it hard at his age, it's honestly, it's just a win. A win. So that should do it for our rapid fire news segment, which leads us to our first deep dive on a topic. And for that topic, we have chosen managers. Managers gone the way in, managers on the way out. There are a few clubs that are doing very poorly at the moment, and a lot of talk about managers. It is that time of year when the managers start getting the boot, start getting the axe. And so we figured we would talk about them. First of all, Mark Hughes out at Southampton. Do we think that's a wise decision, or should they have kept him around for a little longer?
I would have liked him to keep him around a little longer, just because it's one more team that might be worse than Palace. He won, I think it's something like 3 out of 22 games since he's been in charge.
Oof.
Yeah, not surprised Mark Hughes is gone whatsoever. The worrying thing for me now is that he's available.
Oh God, I hadn't thought of it like that. Jeez.
Yeah.
That is worrying.
Life can come at you fast, guys. In the Premier League.
Well, Hodgson is obviously one of the other names that's been thrown around quite a bit as far as potentially getting the axe soon. Chuck, as a Palace fan, what are your thoughts on Hodgson at the moment and their prospects of getting some other good manager if they do fire him? What do you think about all that?
I don't know if the manager. I'll admit I don't know much about the Leipzig manager that's come into Southampton. What style of football he plays. But obviously, it's kind of strange as well that Leipzig know Julian Nagelsmann is coming at the end of the season, but now they've lost their manager in the middle. So I don't know whether they're just happy to consign this season to whatever happens, getting a caretaker manager. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, as we've spoken a little bit about German football on a couple of pods. But yeah, it just doesn't seem. We got a good win against Burnley at the weekend, which we kind of had to do. A couple of decent draws, like one against Man United, one against Arsenal. But I still just don't think that it looks like we have a clear, concise game plan in any games. I said to you guys before, I didn't really want to get into it too much. And it's not because we lost 3-1 and it was an embarrassing performance, because I think it'd be quite easy just to sit here and say that Palace have been awful this season. I mean, we've won 3 games, and those 3 games were against teams that are currently 17th, 19th and 20th respectively. It's pretty woeful again, and we just don't have the squad. And absolute credit where credit's due to Brighton for that match. They were incredibly solid. you can go on about the penalty, but as we've said with these things in the past, that's done. Whether the referee makes an awful decision or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
But it's how you then react after that. And Palace didn't do anything. Soon after that, Brighton are on the attack. A foul possibly should have been given. Ball goes out for a corner, and then Shane Duffy pushes his head into Van Aanholt and gets sent off. So that's half an hour into the game, and you think 1-0 down, half an hour in, down to 10 men, perfect. But Brighton instantly score off of that corner to make it 2-0, and it was woeful defending. And then we go 3-0 down by half time. And so by then it was kind of all over and never really gonna get anything back. Palace don't have an ability to break down teams. We never really beat teams that have 10 men seemingly as well. And Brighton were just impressive. It's the complete contrast that Palace don't seem to have a game plan, and Brighton, even with a man down, they had a very clear, concise way of playing. The defence was solid, and Houghton marshalled it really, really well. Live update, Oscar is rolling his eyes right now. Not what I'm saying, but he's just seen over his shoulder that Wolves have done a goal.
Kepa really should have fucking cleared it. But Chuck, to go off of your point, talking about Palace a little bit, since they are one of the clubs with, manager issues, and you say they look like they lack a game plan, I agree with you completely. When I watch them, they do not seem to really pass the eye test. They look like they're kind of all over the place with their attack. Their defense does look pretty weak. I would agree with all your takes. The only thing I would say is that if you're looking at expected goals, there is no team in the league that is underperforming expected goals as much as Palace are. And so this far into the season, the numbers generally start to catch up to expected goals, or they're going to make their way in that direction soon, probably just because statistically that's, you can only underperform for so long. The numbers are the numbers. And they ranked by expected points, which is basically just expected goal difference with a tiny little statistical work done on top of it. They are at 19 expected points, very near behind Manchester United at 19.5 and Arsenal at 20.2. So they're like right there with United and Arsenal in 10th on expected points. And again, no one is underperforming XG as much as they are. They're at 18 XG and only 11 actually scored.
Yeah, but then you look at the game against Burnley, and it shows that we don't know how to score, because we had 29 shots in that game. 29.
Oh.
And our XG was 2.0 flat.
Insane.
Yeah, that's not good.
So, yeah, we need strikers. And like we said before, teams will see that, and all the prices that we get quoted will just shoot through the roof. But anyway, to move on to other teams, obviously, we would say Burnley, although they're now 1-0 up against Liverpool. But it just never really seems that Sean Dyche... It seems like they'd be happy to go down with Sean Dyche. I don't know if you get the same... I think so, too.
It's weird. Well, I guess it's not weird, because I'm a fan of a big club. So to me, you fire a manager right away if you need to. And that whole idea of, loyalty is very foreign to fans of big clubs. That's kind of, I think, the nature of being at a club that wants to challenge for trophies year in and year out. Yep. You just can't afford the luxury of loyalty, so to speak. And so, from that side of it, I can see why they would stick with him. But to me, if you're, very clearly the worst team in the league, and it looks like you're going to go down, which it does look like they're going to go down, I think, or they're at best in a relegation scrap all year long, why wouldn't you? That seems loyal to a fault. Loyalty is a valuable thing in the world, but there's loyalty to a fault, and to stick with him just out of a sense of obligation, and to get relegated when being relegated is such a financial catastrophe, essentially.
Especially if you don't come straight back up, it's a big deal. Yeah, and
once you're down there, it's really hard to come straight back up. We've seen that with a lot of clubs.
The championship's so competitive, especially this season.
Oscar, don't turn around.
Oh, are you shitting me?
Hey, how far ahead of me are you? I don't see anything.
Okay, enjoy this.
Oh, come on. What a terrible fucking goal. Guess what side of the wing it came from?
The Alonso with David Luiz side.
Luiz isn't even in there, actually. It's Christensen today.
David Luiz light. Luiz light.
Oh, for fuck's sake, it's a slow, low cross, and it just rolls across the box. Everybody's staring at it. Fucking shit.
Welcome to my world, buddy. It's good to have you here and have some company. Here in this town we call misery.
Wolves do love playing against a good team, though.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
Yeah,
step
they
it up.
do. Because this was going to bring me on to my next thing, talking about crap managers. Do you know, at the moment, obviously disregarding the games that are currently going on, the 3 teams with the worst form in the league?
I do not.
Could you be able to take a guess of the 3?
Palace, Southampton, and United.
Okay, so all 3 wrong. Ian?
No, go on. Because I would have gone close to Oscar's guess, I think. Go on.
So Burnley,
Okay.
1 point in 5 games.
Oof.
Wolves, 1 point in 5 games. And Watford, 1 point in 5 games.
Watford, wow. Watford and Wolves, the 2 teams that got off to a strong start, have
Yeah,
really fallen off.
we've said it before how Watford can be, that they seemingly every year they get onto a really strong start. You know, for them to be on 19 points after, what would that be, 10 games would be a real boon for them. But to then only get 1 from the next 5, with the way their manager merry-go-round works, I wouldn't put it past them that Javi Gracia would be one of the next ones to go, because Nuno Espirito Santo doesn't seem to be going anywhere, no matter really what happens, unless something catastrophic happened at Wolves, because what he's got out of that team so far is nothing short of impressive. But yeah, that's 2. When I looked today, there was 2 out of 3 of those that I was really, really surprised at.
Yeah, that's shocking stuff. Of course, now Wolves are beating Chelsea, so that's great. But yeah, that's pretty surprising that those 2 teams would be in there. But to bring it back to Burnley, which we were talking about a second ago, I guess my question to you is, if you were running Burnley, because you guys understand the mindset of, like, you know, loyalty, smaller clubs. Yeah. Smaller clubs, I'll say. How do you weigh the loyalty versus the idea of, like, we are in a bad situation right now and maybe we should do something about it, as opposed to long term? Like, what would you do if you were in charge of Burnley? Would you keep Sean Dyche, or would you start looking for someone to replace him?
I wouldn't be getting rid of Sean Dyche, just because of the way of how volatile things are, and they even though, you know, there's a Premier League money, they've never really spent anything, and what he's got out of those players and getting them to Europa League, as harmful as it has been so far this year to them seemingly. But yeah, I can see them going down with him, because I think if they get a new manager, it would have to be a certain mould of manager, because the override of what he's done for that long would be quite a huge ask. It would have to be a very, very good manager to be able to do that and get players playing a different way. And I don't think Burnley is a club that would have the pull of that manager unless they went for an up-and-coming kind of Championship or even a League One manager.
Well, and as well, if you're on the board of Burnley and there isn't a pot of money to revolutionise things or something, then if you've got no plan of how things are going to change anyway, like what are you looking for? I mean, you know, Swansea seem to always make good managerial appointments, and then it all went downhill. Southampton seemed like they're going the same way, and unless everything's all right in the club other than the manager, it's not necessarily going to do any good to get rid of him. If you can promise a new manager a pot of money, blah blah blah, then maybe you can do that. But I don't know that they can do that. No club should be resigned to going down. But if they are thinking that way, they know Sean Dyche can get out of the Championship. So it's, you know, I think unless they've got any plan for change, you can't just make a decision like that. Because I don't know who they'd get who's better as well. I know we've taken the piss out of him, but I don't know.
Well, Mourinho will be coming up soon, so you know.
That is definitely one manager that seems to be on the bubble. Chuck, I'm sure you've had to think about who's out there on the market right now, given that Palace seem likely to be losing Hodgson, or at least a lot of people seem to be pushing for that. Who is out there that could be any good at all? Or is it just the same old merry-go-round?
I think it could just be the same old merry-go-round. I mean, you look at all of our latest managers, we've had all of them. We've had Tony Pulis, Alan Pardew, Sam Allardyce, Roy Hodgson. Who's left? David Moyes. And
oh, God,
yeah, so not good. I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head looking. But I'd worry if we were going to get in one of those firefighters that would save the season, as it were, and just get get the teams playing that defensive brand of football.
Well, is it just me, or wouldn't Tony Pulis or Big Sam be a good fit for the Burnley squad? Those are the type of managers that can get a lot out of those types of players. Like, I always liked Pulis. I think he caught a lot of shit, but I always thought he did really, really well. And, like, sure, he plays boring Pulis ball defensive football, but that's a bunch of shit. If those are the players you have, and that's what you need to stay mid-table year in, year out.
Yeah, generally Stoke fans were pretty happy with that when they were staying mid-table or thereabouts for a while.
Right, and now we're Stoke.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know, there is bad blood between Pulis and Palace because of like court cases, etc. But pretty much all Palace fans agree that out of all of the managers we've had since we've been promoted, out of getting the most out of the squad of players that was given to them, Tony Pulis did the best job. Because the squad we had was not good, and he had us playing solidly and winning. But he's with Middlesbrough now, and they're doing really well in the Championship. So I can't see him going anywhere. You know, I doubt that he'd want to leave a team like Middlesbrough, because if he can bring them back up, I'm sure he'll get a good little bump in his pay from doing that. Maybe someone like Bielsa from Leeds, if they can't, you know, stay with the pack this season, because he's doing some really good things, and I wouldn't be surprised if Leeds didn't go up this season of him joining a club that's in the Premiership for next year. But as for managers that are out there, I'm not going to pretend like I know a big list of names or whatever, because I'm at a little bit of a loss.
Well, to talk about United, because you mentioned them in there, there's this really good, I tweeted it from the Miles Offside account and my own account as well, Ted Knutson, who is one of the best XG guys. He has his own model. He does all the data stuff for StatsBomb. He was the founder of StatsBomb, so if you ever read StatsBomb articles, Ted Knutson's the guy. An American, might I add. Really, all the people doing good XG work are Americans, because I guess
it seems that way. Yeah,
that's a very American way of thinking about sports.
Mm-hmm.
But he had this graph about Manchester United XG trends from 2017 until now, and starting in so basically since Mourinho came in, their XG on average when he first came in was in the high 2s, so like 2.8. Thereabouts, and it has slowly and very much close to a line. If you look at like regressions and line of best fit, the data pretty much fits a line. Has gone down to, let's see where they're at now, 0.6.
Ooh.
So from 2.8 to 0.6, and it's like a perfect downward trend. Yeah. It's not there's a cliff. It's not that like there's a dip all of a sudden. It is a line with a definite slope pointing down.
At least I support a shit team that's always been shit. God, it must fucking suck to be a Man United fan. Actually, no, Sodom, I don't care. They've had enough. Enjoy it.
Well, and everybody says like, oh, well, at least Mourinho's good defensively, and he certainly was. Like, you look at those two Chelsea teams. Yeah. You know what's coming right now. You look at those Chelsea teams, like they only conceded what, 12 or 14 goals in that season, like the best defensive team ever by far.
Yeah, because they were the best defenders as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah. They had John Terry, Desailly, who else? I don't remember. I wasn't watching them yet back then. But anyway, their XG allowed when he picked up the club was 0.51. And again, very much a nearly perfect line, the data fits, is gone up to 1.65 now. So 0.5 to 1.65 in the XG allowed, and 2.8 to 0.6-ish for XG. They are officially negative expected goal difference on average now. Which, like, that does not look good for them. They are currently, their actual goal difference in the table is +1. And their expected goal difference should be -1. Oh, sorry, I lied. Their actual goal difference is -1. And their expected is -1. So they're right in line with their numbers.
So they're just crap. There we go.
They're just bad. They're not like, this isn't a weird thing. They've been getting progressively and steadily worse, both at offense and at defense, in the year plus that he's been in charge. Like, this is a legitimate thing that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Like, it's not a fluke. We talked about Burnley's numbers and like how this is their numbers. These are United's numbers. This is where they're at. They're definitively a mid-table team now. And so, like, if you're Manchester United ownership, if you're Manchester United fans, and, like, anyone comes up to you and shows you this graph, how can anything other than Mourinho out be the words that come out of your mouth?
I know. Ah, it's lovely. It's such a cheery thought.
I mean, I'm down with that, and anything that makes Jose look bad is funny. There's just no way around that. But, like, I feel like the Glazers have been totally forgotten about in this whole thing. Like, a few years ago, fans were furious about the amount of debt that had been saddled on the club. And then, seemingly bad managerial appointment after bad managerial appointment. But, like, Woodward takes a lot of flack. And Jose sometimes takes a lot of flack. But, like, the owners
Anthony Martial takes a lot of flack. Paul Pogba takes a lot of... He's going to have to start taking antivirals or something.
But, I mean, I think something's seriously wrong there at that club. It seems top to bottom at the minute.
It's sad for me. It's, like, bittersweet because, obviously, him being at United and fucking up United and making them shitty is, like, great because I hate United and that's hilarious.
Fucking Chelsea sleeper agent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Agent Mourinho is doing good work now. But exactly, like, you know, he's a Chelsea guy. I have a lot of love for Jose Mourinho. For his time at Chelsea, he took them to a whole different level. Even the second time around, that 2014-15 team was my second favorite Chelsea team ever. They were so fun to watch. When we first got Costa and we first got Fabregas, and they were passing and they were attacking, they flew through about February, scoring a ton of goals, and then reined it in as the season got tighter and tighter at the end of the year. But they spent the most days in first place of any team. They were tied on points with Tottenham the second week. And other than that, they were in first place the whole season. And they were great to watch. And so I have a lot of love for Mourinho. I liked him at Real Madrid. I think he caught a lot of shit that he didn't deserve at Real Madrid because they have records for, like, the most goals scored in a season, the most points in a season. I think they still hold that record. Like, his Real Madrid teams were phenomenal to watch. Exciting, fun, attacking teams. But he's just not good anymore.
He's not the
and
special one.
I don't know what's happened to him. Yeah, it's kind of like watching Wenger, or what it must have been like watching Wenger disintegrate in real time. Like, Thanos snapped his fingers, and Wenger and Mourinho are both, like, just so far past
one
what they used
for the
to
Marvel
be.
Fans there. If you stayed with us for 2 weeks, there you go. There's your reference.
There's your Marvel reference.
So, obviously, I think it's fair to say then that if we look at bookies odds, that Jose Mourinho is in fact the favourite to be the next Premier League manager to leave his post. That's at 15-8 on. Did you care to hazard a guess of, like, the next group or who you think would be second, most likely?
Hodgson.
No. Weirdly, Hodgson's up in 5th, which I think is absolutely mental. And bear in mind what we've been saying, and especially what I've said. So in 4th, at 7-1 is Sean Dyche.
Right.
Also joint with him is Neil Warnock on 7-1, and then second is Nuno Espirito Santo at 5-1.
Huh?
Really?
Yeah. So
that's weird.
This is according to Paddy Power. Hodgson and Benitez both at 10-1, and then you've got Eddie Howe and Maurizio Pochettino at 20-1. So I can't help but feel that's a little bit wrong. And Javi Gracia for Watford are way up in 33-1. So if you've got a couple of quid spare and fancy a little punt, because Watford, we all know Watford love to ditch a manager, especially coming up to January.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they've got 1 point in the last 5.
I think to bring it back to Jose, I think that the thing that he does currently is that he does just enough to avoid getting fired. Like, they'll be bad, and then they'll have a good result. Or they'll have a bunch of, like, middling results.
With his team sheet tonight, it looks like he wants to get fired.
I know, and yet, with that said, it's 1-1 in the 65th, and United have had 7 shots and 5 of them on target, compared to Arsenal's 4 shots and 1 on target. So, like, obviously I don't know the XG because it's in real time, it's happening right now, but XG usually correlates pretty strongly with shots on target, and when shots on target are 5-1, sounds like United are doing a good job against Arsenal. I'm not watching that match. I'm only barely watching the Chelsea match.
Well, we can get into a bit more of analysis of Arsenal and how they play, I think, in the second half. So I think that's a very nice point that you brought us to there, Oscar.
Yep.
Should we maybe take a break?
Sounds good. I'll go catch the last 8 minutes of this Chelsea match, and then we'll come back and record part 2 and get into some Arsenal stuff. So come back with us in a bit. Fucking Chelsea, man. Alexa, play Sounds of Silence in the living room.
Welcome back to the Miles Offside podcast, where we've just learnt that one of the worst form teams in the Premier League has just beaten Oscar's beloved Chelsea. Oscar, can we just get your live reaction of... No, Oscar, put the rope down, Oscar. Oscar, don't... No, it's not worth it, Oscar. Oh, you're still there. It's fine.
Oh, boy. Yeah, we lost. We lost. When I saw Alvaro Murata's name in the starting 11, I thought to myself, I wanted to have a good Wednesday, but maybe I won't.
There we go. Well, we thought we were going to keep talking about bad teams the first part, but it's kind of leaked over into the second. However, one of the big topics that we wanted to discuss after what I believe could easily be said to be the game of the season so far, Arsenal with an absolute thriller 6-goal wonder show against Tottenham on the weekend. Gents, please tell me you saw highlights, the game, something.
Oh, I watched every minute of that. That was fantastic.
Oh, it was just an atmosphere at the Emirates. There was there were cards, there were many goals, there was Mike Dean, there were
perfect
what
storm.
more can you want? The absolute perfect recipe for just sit down. No, I will not sit down, Eric Dyer. Don't tell me what to do.
That Sunday did not disappoint, let me tell you that. Between that amazing Arsenal-Spurs match and then the ridiculous goal in the Liverpool match.
Oh, God, that whole game is ridiculous.
Up until then, that was a great 0-0, and then to finish it like that was just brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic 0-0. I think the XG on that one was 3.1 to 1.2. So, wow. A fucking amazing game that only ended 1-0 on a ridiculous goal. Just so dumb. But to bring it back to Arsenal-Tottenham, it was a hell of a performance from Arsenal. 4-2 against Spurs, who had just come off a big win against Chelsea the weekend before. And those three teams have just kind of traded points with each other in a circle, because we beat Arsenal second week, and we looked real good. Then Tottenham spanked us, and now Arsenal summarily beat Tottenham in the North London derby. It was 1.5 to 0.5 on the XG, plus 1 pen for each team. So if you look at other models, it might say 2.5 to 1.5. But that's thoroughly outplaying them. 4-2, a bit high on that, but very thoroughly outplayed.
Yeah, but we've said all season that Arsenal get by on the absolute quality of their strikers, and hitting some absolute crackers of shots. They are still, though, even though Emery has got them energised, and like I said, to hear a noise like that out of the Emirates is I don't think it's ever happened. But they are still a bit of a second half team. And the numbers would kind of show that, wouldn't they? I believe, Ian, you've actually been doing some numbers this week, haven't you?
Well, I mean, there's numerous things that show what you've said there. So, Arsenal haven't yet led at half-time all season, which is insane.
And that was true today as well, right? It was 1-1 at halftime?
Yeah, it was 1-1 at halftime.
Oh, speaking of, sorry, Ian, to cut you off, update, it's 2-2 now.
Ooh.
So both of them scored since we took a break.
It's only really an update for us.
Sorry.
An update on the result you've known about for a day or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so that still holds true then. If you were to take, if every game would have ended at half-time, Arsenal would be 19th in the league.
Oh.
Wow.
If you were to take the second half as the game and take the points from the second half, Arsenal would be second. So it's a mirror image. I mean, and this is not like Arsenal used to be. They're showing resilience, which they never did. A Wenger team went down like 1-0, done deal generally.
Yeah, in the last few years especially, you're right.
If they can sort that out, if they can sort their first half performance out, which I don't know why it's happening, I don't have the analysis at my fingertips like some people do. But if they can sort that out, then they could be serious contenders. And Emery's only been in there a little while. So, yeah, who knows? But that I was stunned at that what used to be a massive weakness of Arsenal's is suddenly a strength.
Yeah, they never really used to have a spine, and they didn't battle. You're right. I think pivotal in that is just Torreira. He's incredible. He's there in N'Golo Kante, and he just is winning the ball and controlling that midfield and giving protection to those central defenders. But also, if you watch any highlights, he's always looking to go forward, like driving forward and getting the ball up there at the earliest opportunity. And when you've got a player that's playing so positively like that and is winning the ball back, it's a real boon for the team. And then you've got the manager going mental on the sidelines and getting involved. And it's just, it is that completely new look Arsenal that we said before the season began that we'd see. And it's great from them. Absolutely great. Aubameyang's still banging in goals. Sadly, hasn't scored tonight. He's my bloody fantasy captain. Lacazette still getting goals. It seems like whoever comes off the bench is getting really involved, and that's something as well that Wenger was very much like we've said Hodgson has been this season. Like, he just wouldn't make changes, or if he was getting booed or what have you. And Arsenal fans hated the 85th minute Giroud substitution, which would usually end up being a goal. But now Emery isn't afraid to just hook someone and make that positive change and take the risks. And I think that's why it shows in the second half performances that they are so much better. It's a bit of a shame that we can't. It feels a bit weird to talk about them defensively when they've conceded 2 goals to Man United, who, as Oscar said in the first part, haven't been very good creatively and getting much XG. So there are still some problems there, but Rob Holding went off early as the starting defender, and it's we're getting into that very hectic time of year where team rotation is a real factor, and it's just how you can come out of the other side of it. So I think if they can hold on to a point here, away at Old Trafford, where for years and years they've got nothing really, it's great for them and another positive. To be up in 4th, their desired place. That's what you want right now,
Yeah.
Yeah. Fourth place in the FA Cup final. Away you go.
So to pick up on something you said there, because we had a comment from Adam P, and he said, "Is Torreira the best value signing of the season?"
Absolutely.
How much? He was 26 million.
I think
is that
26
right?
from Sampdoria. Sampdoria? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's looking incredible value.
Yeah, because I think early in the season, when the window closed, we were trying to look at who were the best kind of signings for each club, and there weren't many massive marquee ones for any club. But Torreira, low key in the unfashionable position, as it were, has absolutely shone this year and been pivotal to that team. And it's vindication, I guess, for a lot of Arsenal fans, because it's the kind of player that they've been crying out for years, absolutely years of having that fight and desire of the team that was so good in the late 90s, early 2000s. So absolutely, hands down, I think he'd be the signing of the season. Whether it shows up in stats or not, it doesn't really matter. And he still is getting a few assists and a few goals here or there.
And Oscar, he says he's not trying to rile you here, but he says, is Torreira more akin to the type of player that Sarri wants Kante to be?
Ooh.
He does get up in... Oh, that's a hard question to answer.
That's a good question, actually.
That is a really good question, yes. My argument to that, or my answer to that, rather, is twofold. First, you're not wrong. He's really good in both directions, and he could be doing a really good job in the Sarri system, specifically in the Conte role. But ultimately, I think my answer is going to be no, because I think Conte is a lot better getting forward than anyone really gives him credit for. I think he's a really good dribbler. He's scored a few really good goals in his time at Chelsea. Not frequently, but he knows how to get in the box. His use of space is really fantastic. So I would say that Conte is better going forward than anyone realizes. And as we've clearly established, he's the best defensive midfielder in the world. Like, that is, I think, generally agreed upon. I don't think that's even a controversial thing to say. So Conte's ability to go in both directions. I would say in total is higher than Torreira's, mostly because he's so good at the back and he's probably better than anyone gives him credit for going forward. But it's not as obvious necessarily as most people would think. I think Torreira's like right up there. I think Torreira's been really, really good for Arsenal. Especially, as Chuck said, like giving them a different sort of attitude than we've really seen from them. The other thing for Arsenal, as far as how well they're doing, or at least how they're doing as well as they are compared to their numbers, is the strikers. And we've talked about that before, but I think you can't really understate, and as a Chelsea fan, this is fucking painful for me to watch them have this when I have Alvaro Murata starting and then we lose to Wolves tonight. Lacazette and Aubameyang are just like fucking amazing. We've talked about how good they are. We've talked about how like having elite strikers helps you overperform your numbers. We had mentioned a few weeks ago how much Arsenal were overperforming their XG and how much it was so much higher than anyone else in the league. It continues to be like a legitimate story how fucking ridiculously above their numbers they are. They are currently at 20.8 XG and 32 actual goals scored.
Wow,
they are overperforming by
wow.
11.2 goals. For some context, the team that has the second highest overperformance, remember Arsenal were at 11.2 here, is Brighton and Hove Albion, who are overperforming by 3.4. And that's the second most in the league. Like, no one else is above even +4, and Arsenal are +11.5. That is fucking absurd. Like, it makes me angry it's so absurd, because partially, obviously, like, there's a lot of variance that goes into things, and you don't really expect the team to overperform that much. There's been a lot of talk about Arsenal are, like, historically overperforming their attacking numbers, like we haven't seen in a very, very long time in Europe. But also, like, Aubameyang and Lacazette are just really, really good. And so that's what happens when you have really good strikers.
Yeah. So this is good, because Adam P did say earlier in the week, I'm not sure if you saw it, but he tweeted us and Kaylee Graphics and said, I'll buy you all a drink if you can please not talk about us, Arsenal, overperforming our XG again. Now,
sorry, mate.
Which is good.
But it's going to keep going.
It is what it is, man.
But the thing is, and it did get me thinking about something, which is XG is a metric that takes into account position, the situation, isn't it? It's the situation that that you're in when the goal or not goal happens. But like, presumably that is based on your average Premier League player, if there is such a thing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, right. Okay, so like the average player in that situation is going to score or not score. But can it just not be that Lacazette and Aubameyang are better than the average player? So they're going to... I know that if you take expected goals, expected points, blah, 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 then usually it pans out that the season works out like that. But can it not just be that those are two very good strikers who, in situations, are going to score more often than your average Premier League player?
I think that's exactly right. And thinking about it, you look at how many teams have one elite striker. If we say elite, so you've got Man United with Lukaku. Even though he hasn't been underperforming, I still consider him an elite striker.
Yeah.
Tottenham have got Harry Kane. Man City have got Aguero, and you could argue Jesus as well, although they never played together. Arsenal have got two. So there aren't that many clubs that have got one elite striker. Arsenal have got two, so it does make sense why they would overperform so highly. And now that they have a bit more solidity in midfield, and it gives them the freedom to take those ridiculous shots, and Lacazette's pulled off some great ones, as have Aubameyang.
So good.
This year. That it doesn't really surprise me why they would overperform so highly, because it's a position at which they suffer the least with rotation, if it does happen.
Yeah.
You look at Tottenham, they'll go from Harry Kane to Fernando Llorente. Like, that is a significant drop.
Yeah. Or fucking Chelsea are running out.
Well, Murata.
Or Giroud, who's not a good finisher, really. He's a great player, he's great in the system, but like as far as striking and scoring.
But scored more goals for France than Thierry Henry.
Ooh, that's good.
So,
Ian, can I just say real quick? You gave me a massive
boner.
nerd boner just now. Yeah, big time.
Oh, I got it right.
Yep. So if stats isn't your thing, go ahead and skip forward maybe a minute or 2 or 7. We'll see how long this goes. But this is
skip ahead.
Fucking perfect, Ian. I cannot express how happy I am that this question, the way you phrased it, came up.
How do I skip? How do I skip, guys? How do I skip on life? Is there a button?
There is some really, really exciting work going on right now that they talked about over the break. Double Pivot, which is like the analytics podcast with Kaylee and Goodman on it. I brought him up before. Did a full hour and change on like XG modeling, what's going on currently in the world of XG modeling, what are the updates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that people are working on, and there's a lot of good research going into it at the moment, is this model called post-shot XG. We talked a few weeks back about non-shot XG and how that takes into account basically everything but the shot. So when there's a cross that no one gets on the end of, that still has some XG to it. This is now a model called post-shot XG, and it takes into account what it basically does in its sample is it deletes shots that are not on target. Or if not deletes, it controls for whether shots are on target or not. Essentially, the idea being that it controls for how good of a striker someone is. Yeah. So that then you can get more specific information about specific players that will be of value to clubs more than to fans and to like people to just know. And to make a very long story short, because there's a lot of fun math about it, and if you want to learn more about that, specifically I'm talking to you, Dave, go ahead and listen to the Double Pivot podcast.
They always say you should talk to just one listener.
Yeah, exactly.
Very much are doing that.
Find your listener and exactly. Find your first follower.
But there's a lot of cool methodology in it. But essentially their findings were, and this is going to be verified by someone else using a different set of data, but that's just like good science, is that in the actual effect of a good finisher, a good striker, is incredibly small compared to the effect of having strikers who get in good positions and teams that create good chances for those. So the old idea being that like if you plop Mitrovic, right? He's really good, but he's not elite. No one would say he's elite, I don't think, except maybe Chuck.
He's coming back in my fantasy team, lads.
Yeah, Golden Boot at the World Cup. We're still waiting on that one.
Like Sister Act 2, he's back in the habit.
If you drop him in for like an Aguero, let's say, or a Harry Kane, even when he was at his peak, right? It's worth maybe a goal and a half a season on the XG numbers. A whole season. Like, it's not a big effect of being an elite finisher as much as it is being able to find good space. So, like, that is an actual measurable skill. Like, Chicharito, or Javier Hernandez Chicharito, gets on the end of some really good chances because he knows how to find space. Diego Costa was the same thing. But actual shooting ability, and this sounds so counterintuitive, that's why it's cool that the stats found this, that the nerd stats numbers people were able to find this. Finishing ability is so much less important than a lot of other things in actual goals scored and expected goals scored. And so the short answer to your question is yes, obviously, Aubameyang and Lacazette are really, really good, so it'll help them overperform a bit. The long answer to your question is no. Something else is going on there that just, like, even if they overperform a little, 11 cannot be explained away. Even a little bit by them being elite level finishers. The obvious exceptions to that being Messi and Ronaldo because they break data and they break models everywhere they go because they're just so good that they're impossible to, like, account for in data, basically. But everyone else, every other quote-unquote elite striker, like, it's such a minimal effect that it's actually kind of crazy to me. So I don't really know how to transition back to Arsenal from that other than to say, like, they're good, but, like, you can't just keep overperforming like that.
We'll see, you know. I haven't pulled out the XG for Arsenal Man United, but it would definitely be disappointing for them to draw there, which you wouldn't have thought a couple of seasons ago. And you absolutely do have to praise Emery for all of the work he's done and so quickly. Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, how long have they gone without losing now?
19? No, 20 games, I guess.
Yeah, it's a lot of games.
And there was that big stretch where they played crap teams. Well, now they've played good teams.
Right. Yeah. The other side of that, where they're not particularly over or underperforming, but that is actually a genuine noticeable trend in their numbers, is that their defense is getting a lot better in the last month or so. And so that is affecting their expected goal difference, which then directly affects their expected points and their general performance. They're still overperforming their attacking numbers, and that might start to slow down. But at the very least, their XG underneath hasn't changed that much, but their expected goals allowed is much, much better. And you can see it in more than just expected goals allowed. Their possession of opponent sequences reaching the final third, so how often they're stopping stuff in midfield essentially, went from about 50% for the first 8 games of the season to the low 30s in the last 5. So they are stopping teams in the midfield. The teams aren't getting into high danger areas. And you've seen that directly impact their defensive numbers. Like the way they beat Tottenham was not by their amazing attack because they only generated 1.5. It was by their defense. Keeping Tottenham to 0.5 is hard. And they did it. That was a legitimate thing that they did. Part of that at least has been a change in the formation. They've switched to a 3 at the back more recently, which I think mitigates the effect of their center backs being shit.
Put more of them.
Because there's more of them now? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's part of why David Luiz works in a back 3 is because his defense is a bit shaky, let's say.
Statistically, should be 1.5 times better.
It brings their expected centre-backs up to 2. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a really good joke. I love that.
XCB, you heard it here folks.
Expected CBs. But that shift to 3 at the back has been really good for their defense numbers, and that has seen an upward turn in their expected goal difference, which then has an expected, they are better now. Measurably better now, and they have been for 5 games. So, to sort of take it back to Adam P's point, yes, we're not going to stop talking about how they're overperforming XG because they continue to do that at an alarmingly high rate. But the good news is that their defense is getting better, and that means that they are legitimately in the top 4 race. Arsenal and Spurs have both improved their underlying numbers significantly in the last month, whereas Chelsea are going in the other direction, and it scares the shit out of me. And I don't like it at all. Because it's going to be a tight race for top 4.
Well, there you go. Adam P, I hope you enjoyed that section as resident Arsenal fan that gets in contact. Don't know if there's any others. If there are any more of you out there, get in touch and let us know what you think as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, so that we're not just... You don't think that we're just spouting bollocks, but I think we're being pretty fair in saying, and I know how much it will pain Oscar to say as a Chelsea fan as well, but legit Arsenal do look great this season. As a neutral, anything that creates a bit more tension at the top or a bit more competition somewhere in the league is great.
Yeah, because no one's catching City at this point.
No one's catching City. Not even Liverpool coming back from 1-0 down against Burnley to win 3-1. You're not catching Man City.
They're not. They're just not. But I'll tweet out a couple of good articles. One is from Football Whispers. They're a great statistical site if you're into numbers like me. Mark Thompson, one of the authors there, wrote a good article about slowly improving Arsenal finally deserve their top 4 spot, and it talks about their defensive numbers and how they've improved. So I got a lot of numbers from that. And then also Between the Posts, which is also known as 11 Tegan 11 on Twitter. Their match report for Arsenal Tottenham got into some more recent number stuff other than just looking at that match, and it's a good article. So I'll post that on the Twitter too for those of you that want to do a bit more, not light reading, but numbers stuff.
There we go. Facts, figures, numbers, articles. So, Ian, after that, do we have any questions this week?
Well, no, because I think we managed to address all of Adam P's questions during our Arsenal chat there.
So we just really meticulously wove them into a section. We're getting good at this.
It was almost seamless.
Until this
or at least it will be when you edit it.
What about Dave? No questions from Dave this week?
Let's not talk about Dave. He flew too close to the sun now. That's it. He's gone. I've got a question that I want to ask though.
Okay.
Of you gents, because it's something that's been really bothering me in my life. And it's not about football whatsoever. So it's good for my speech at the very beginning that I didn't want to talk about football. It's just simply where does socks go?
It feels like it's going to need its own jingle. Chuck's question. Sorry, what?
Where do socks go? Because I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But do you always find you always lose one sock from every pair of socks that you own? And then you go to get out a pair of socks and you can't find it. And you think, because, sometimes you throw away one sock, but you could definitely throw away 2 if you see it's next to it. But you never find the socks. And I had it once that I was at my sister's for Christmas and I got bought a set of 5 socks, and they were Star Wars socks. So this will get you interested, Oscar.
There we go.
There was a C-3PO, an R2-D2, a Yoda, a Stormtrooper, and Darth Vader. Right? And they're all pairs, so 5 pairs, 10 socks. By the end of leaving my sister's house, after a couple of days, I only had 7 socks left.
Is your sister stealing the socks?
Well, no, because they weren't anywhere. So I don't understand where the you take them off, you put them in a washing basket, you put them in a washing, you put them in a drawer, and then they're gone.
I mean, you've seen the South Park Underpants Gnomes episode.
Yeah.
What? Step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, profit.
Yeah. Also known as the Movie Pass business model. Step 1, buy everyone's movie tickets. Step 2, question mark shrug. Step 3, profits. Lo and behold, they're like $1 billion in debt and going out of business.
Yeah, didn't our first meeting for this go kind of a similar way? Start a podcast, make money someday. I don't know.
At the minute, we're still in the making a horrendous loss.
We're just in the question mark bit.
Yeah.
Somehow, I think the question mark phase might last quite a long time. But seriously, I want to know: does anyone else have this problem?
No, I mean there is a real answer to this. Most dryers are constructed fairly cheaply, and so it's a very, very common thing that if you take it apart, there's underneath there's this empty space because they need it to be able to spin, and socks are particularly small and easy to go through, basically the secret doorway. And so there's countless videos on the internet of people taking apart a dryer and finding 900 socks in this supposed to be empty compartment. It's actually kind of a fire hazard too. I saw a thing about it that was well, check your dryers because this might happen. And it's that's where all the socks go. The answer is that's where they go. They get eaten by your dryer. So if you take apart your dryer, it's probably in there.
Amazing that you'd think to ask the question. Bizarre. Equally amazing that Oscar might actually have an answer, which is just, ridiculous. So every time you do a dry and you put 5 pairs of socks in the dryer, your expected socks is about 4.95.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, okay. It is. It's ridiculous. I don't understand. And that's why, there are 2 things about socks. One, that I now just want to always buy the same sock. Just not a difference in design, not a difference in colour, the exact same sock. So I wouldn't give a shit then what my expected socks were. Just open a drawer, all the same, perfect. But also, I would like to never have to wear the same pair of socks more than once. I don't care if that's wasteful or not.
That is quite wasteful.
Yeah, but you can donate them to people need socks. But you can buy socks quite cheaply these days. But imagine, you know what the feeling's like when you put on a fresh pair of socks. Now imagine that every single day for the rest of time.
I cannot believe the words that you're saying right now. If I called my wife over right now and I was like, Emily, what is the number 1 item on my trillionaire wish list? We play this game that is if you were a trillionaire,
bring her
what's
over.
Some
Bring
extravagant
Get
thing?
a guest on. Get her on.
All right.
Get her up to the microphone, Oscar.
Okay. It's exactly what you just said.
Okay.
Exactly what you just said.
Okay. So, Emily, let's test this. This is like Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
This will be perfect if we play this game. Emily's going to be a guest on the pod. She's probably not going to be able to hear me for this bit.
That's all right. He's going to take his cans off. We'll be fine. Here we go. This is happening.
This is happening.
Just sit down. They're going to ask you a question. Put the headphones on.
This is weird.
So are we going to ask? Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Talking to the microphone.
Welcome, Emily. So, Emily, we're playing a little bit of Mr. and Mrs. right here because Oscar has made a claim after something that I've said that you would 100% corroborate.
Okay.
So apparently you have a list of things, like a trillionaire's wish list.
Yeah.
What would be Oscar's number 1 thing that he would buy, a ton of, or only?
Fresh pair of socks every day.
You win! Unbelievable! 10 points to Hufflepuff. You nailed it.
To Hufflepuff.
Oh no, I've opened a box of worms here.
Shit,
No.
Chuck. Abort.
Don't abort.
Oh, Jesus.
We've got a guest on and I've offended her straight away. But thank you for that, Emily.
Bye.
But there you go. Thank you. Bye.
That was the best. Thank you.
What did he say?
He said 10 points to Hufflepuff.
Did you just call my wife a Hufflepuff? She's so mad at you, Chuck.
Did you call my wife a Hufflepuff?
And there we go. So, I mean, unless you just want that kind of every week from our question segment where I make something up, get in touch with us on Twitter at MilesOffsidePod, email milesoffsidepod@gmail.com, Facebook, send us a letter, whatever.
Carrier pigeon. What a fantastic call to action. Unless you want me to do that nonsense, tweet into us.
Because seriously, if that doesn't inspire you to get to your keyboards and warrior up, then I don't know what will. But there we go. It's good to know, Oscar, that you're in a loving marriage where you two know each other. You're showing me a picture right now. What is that?
That is a bottom of a dryer with all of your socks, apparently, Chuck.
All the socks.
Yeah. You know how every week we do a teaser tweet?
Yeah, that's going out.
There it is.
Job done.
So enjoy that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for answering questions I didn't even then ask, and things I never thought I'd find out. That once again, me and Oscar agree on something.
What a fucking weird thing for us to both have the same weirdo
That is
fucking
insane.
fantasy. I've never met anyone else who wants a brand new pair of socks every day.
It's not weird. It's sensible.
Oh, it makes sense. They're the most comfortable thing in the world. What's better than a new pair of socks? Literally nothing. Nothing.
Very much.
I don't want to hear it, Ian. Don't give me that look.
And with that, Ian, any final thoughts?
I'm not sure if I should go into sponsorship off the back of this, but anyway. So we've also now secured ourselves a US Amazon link. So if you are in the UK or the US and you want to take an Amazon Prime 1 month free trial, you can take that free trial. We'll get a little kickback to support us, and you can get all your Christmas presents delivered for free. So if you look at the show notes, I will put in a UK and a US Amazon link now.
Yep. And you too, free delivery tomorrow, can get yourself as many socks as you want.
All the socks you could possibly dream of.
All the socks. And there is the link again. Christmas, birthdays, Hanukkah, whatever. Oscar, anything else to add from you, bud?
I just would recommend that all the listeners use the Amazon thing to buy some new socks. Make themselves happy. Because what's better than a new pair of socks?
Make themselves happy. Tweet us if you've bought some socks recently. Tweet us your socks. What socks you wearing? Hashtag mop socks. Anyway, thank you very much, guys, for listening. If you're still here, God forbid. And thank you very much. Thank you, Oscar.
Bye.
Thanks, Emily, in the background.
Bye. Heavens to Betsy.
Heavens to Betsy.
Oh, God.
And thank you, Ian, as well, as ever.
Thank you.
Godspeed for the edit on this one. Take care very much, guys. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.